Hi, my name is Jesse, and I'm an 11th grader at South Milwaukee High School. I'm currently working on the cajon. My favorite subject in school is choir. When I graduate, um, I don't know what I'm going to be yet, and I'm most looking forward to the future. You're listening to the SM Way podcast.
Thank you for that introduction, Jesse. Moments before I asked Jesse to do that intro for us, he was drumming on an instrument I didn't recognize as a drum. He was sitting on it and tapping the sides in an impressive pattern, and he looked like a complete natural. It wasn't part of a class or anything, he was just freeforming it during some free time. I'm Dan Bader, host of the SMY podcast and communication coordinator for the school district of South Milwaukee. I have to say, I'm constantly surprised and impressed with the students and staff here at South Milwaukee. There's a creativity and passion flowing through South Milwaukee's classrooms that is amazing. I've worked at or reported on many school districts in my career, and I can say with some certainty that that's not the case everywhere. In today's podcast, I want to introduce you to one of those inspiring teachers, Julie Barnett. Julie is the middle school STEM teacher, and I'll have her explain what that means in a moment. But I wrote a story about her program at the beginning of the year, and I thought she would just be great for listeners to hear from directly. She's new to the district, but not to South Milwaukee, and is doing some pretty cool hands-on science in the ground floor of the middle school. Julie Barnett, welcome to the SMY podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here.
So before we get into your really exciting STEM program, I like to ask the folks who are educators on this program why you became an educator. Any thoughts?
Well, I figured out in third grade that I wanted to teach, and my mom used to say it was because I wanted to boss people around, but I don't think that's quite it. I love when students connect the new dots and they like, oh my gosh, miss, this is how this works, and those aha moments that come with that. And just seeing the kids like, wait, miss, you mean science is here? And this is science and this is working? I'm like, yes. And just seeing those moments when they make those connections are just priceless. And I live for those moments.
Okay. Well, that's a great why. So STEM. So for those of us, I feel like it's been around for a long time, but tell me what STEM is and why it's not just your regular science class.
So STEM is really a motivation to learn about more topics together. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So by combining all three of those together, we can explore concepts in the world that are just a little different than what you might be seeing in a traditional science classroom or a traditional tech ed room or a traditional mathematics course. Mm-hmm. So we can combine all those pieces together to learn about the world around us.
And what do you get from that? What do your students, what do you hope by the end that your students take away besides kind of the knowledge of those things? Because it seems like the combination is what's the point, right?
Yeah, I want them to see that like these concepts aren't isolated to school. Mathematics doesn't just happen in your classroom. Engineering is everywhere and in design and everything else. So I really want the students to see how everything is connected and how everything is a part of their lives already. This is just how we understand it.
Now I genuinely don't know this, is your class an elective or is it something that each middle schooler takes?
6th and 7th grade do take my class automatically, and then 8th grade can elect to take that. I think they have a couple different choices, but I see most of the 8th grade also. So I'll see kids for 3 years in a row.
And so you worked at Discovery Place? Discovery World in Milwaukee, doing this. Tell me a little bit about that. What did you do there?
So I started with their Boy Scout and Girl Scout programs when they relaunched them in 2010. And I really coordinated a lot of those programs. And then I started running their school labs. And I taught a lot of chemistry-based things, food sciences, electronics, robots, even like graphic design, screen printing, things like that. So I really got like a wide sample of all the different sciences there. And that's why this STEM class was the perfect fit for me, because I really do have a wide variety of all these different topics available for me to teach.
And you genuinely have a lab. It kind of looks like a mad scientist lab, where it looks like an old shop room in the middle school, which if you don't know, used to be our high school. But it just begs for creativity. What are you doing with the kids? Maybe grade by grade. What are sixth graders
So, like,
learn?
sixth grade right now is focusing on Scratch programming. So it's a block-based program online that the kids can work with. It's out of MIT. So it's a really cool program where the kids can start designing. We're doing a game design this week where they're making a maze that they're going to have a score and variables that they have to work with, custom blocks and things like that. So lots of little pieces that they're going to have to code together. But you use this blocks to code rather than having to type out all the words. So you don't have to learn a programming language to start coding. It's a really great starting spot. So that's what my sixth graders are focusing on right now. We're also going to go into architecture, room design, and different measurement techniques and stuff like that later in the course. My seventh graders, we just started building our DC motors this morning. We learned about Tesla and Edison, the battle of the currents, AC versus DC. The kids had no idea about that, and they're like, wait, so Tesla's not just a car company? And I'm like, oh, guys, let's talk about this. So we've been really covering electronics in seventh grade with a lot of hands-on projects. Because while electricity is awesome, it's even more awesome when you can do things with it and see it happening in front of you in a safe, controlled way.
Yeah, and so important to actually real life, right? That knowledge, like if you want a solar system on your house, DC, and why we're not getting the amount of juice out of it that we would, because it has to be converted so your house can use it. Your car, the generator or the alternator in it does that, alternating current, right? Same thing, my camper. I got to figure, it's got a battery in it, but it's got a charge and it's got a component. And if I didn't understand that there are two kinds of electricity, I might not even get how those things work.
Right, and we still use both types. I mean, AC is the wall outlets, and DC is going to be any type of battery source for the most part. But understanding that those are a part of our lives, how they operate differently, and what we can do differently with each of those is really important. And that's what my seventh graders have just been focusing on is basic electrical concepts. We do a lot with 9-volt batteries and hooking things, movements, lights. We took apart some Christmas tree light strands and we're able to light up different amounts of lights and talk about series circuits, parallel circuits, all that fun stuff too. So seventh grade has really been deep diving into that. Eighth grade, they have started the year with what we call automatons, which are these little like wind-up toys, essentially. They're the predecessors to robotics as far as I'm concerned, but they didn't have programming, but you had to program them in the way that they moved. And so we talked about how these have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, particularly into the 1800s. They were really popular as a way to show off a technology. And the same technology that goes into these little wind-up toys goes into your old wristwatches and things like that. So this is still technology that's used places. So they got to see that, and that's the beginning of automation and programming. And then today we're going to start using our Arduino boards, and we're going to start learning how to actually code, create circuits, code them, do different things with them, use different sensors, get data. It's really going to take a deep dive into the world of like microcomputers.
So the recurring theme I'm hearing is that you have something from them to hold in in each one. It's not a lecture, and to manipulate, and with a goal in mind at the end. That sounds equipment heavy. It must be.
It is. I mean, there's some pieces to buy ahead of time that we've got, but a lot of it is simple things. Like I said, we cut apart Christmas tree lights. A strand of those is really easy and relatively cheap right now, and we're able to use those to work with. 9-volt batteries, those are relatively inexpensive. So while we're using a lot of different components, none of them are super like impossible to achieve outside of the classroom too, with parent supervision. But yeah, our Arduinos, they are a microprocessor, so they do come with a little bit of a cost. They're coming out of a company, but the software is free to use online. So there's a lot of resources for people that want to continue exploring this outside my class.
I think I've told you before, I have a middle schooler, well, at least in his district, he's a fifth grader. And it's kind of all the things that he does. He, heavy on the computer, trying to program, and just manipulate things using his computer. And when I visited your classroom, that's what I saw. The kids all huddled around the computer talking about the programming looking at the board and figuring out why something didn't happen. I have a feeling that why is a big question in your...
Yeah. So I always ask them, okay, so like if something's not working, I think you saw my 8th grade last quarter working on their Arduino boards. If something's not working, there's a reason. It could be your code, it could be a physical connection, it could be an LED that's blown that we have to replace. So I really encourage the kids to do a lot of problem solving. And that concept plays into every part of their lives. But sometimes the kids, they sit there and they're like, oh, miss, I have no idea. I'm like, well, let's start with what you know. Let's see, okay, so this is working. You know your code is good because you double checked it or you copied exactly. Okay, so let's see what else we can problem check. And getting these hands-on, try it out. It might fail. That's okay. We move on. We keep working on it. And eventually we get those light bulb moments when, oh my gosh, everything works. The kids get it, and it's amazing.
It seems like applying that scientific method, like for the first time, like you probably learned it earlier, and it's probably reinforced in traditional science class. But actually, to solve a problem, you need to use it.
Right. It's not enough to just guess and check. You really need to be thinking, okay, what do I know? What do I need to know? How can I learn that? Oh, so something's wrong with my code. How can I learn? Oh, I can go back into my notes. Okay, how can I fix that? And it's really applying that. We call it the engineering design process in our class. And it really starts with, brainstorming 1,000 ideas, some that might be good, some that you automatically know are not good, but you still want to get them down. And then you narrow that down to your working idea. That's how you design a new system. And then you got to do some troubleshooting, and you might be prototyping where your first project is cardboard or Christmas lights, but your next project is LEDs, and then your next project is building up from there. So we're really taking the kids through those design methods, those processes, and teaching them that this is really how you think. You just don't realize that you think like this.
Do you see, since this is a brand new program, so the 6th graders are getting it fresh, and do you see a difference between like the 7th graders and the 8th graders who didn't have this class and that they might not be used to failing?
Well, what I'm definitely seeing is a gap in some knowledge when, like, my 7th grade is learning about electronics, and my 8th grade should be programming and applying that, but I'm having to go over some of those basic concepts again because they haven't covered it yet. So I'm seeing some overlap there, and then I'm seeing kids who are not used to working with these little components, or they hear the word code and they're like, Miss, I can't do that. I'm like, yes, you can. Let's try. We're going to start simple. And I understand that some students will excel more with coding and some students will have a harder time, and that's okay. We work together, we start basic, and then we build up from there, and the students really have had a lot of success. I'm really proud of what they've done so far. And we're only halfway through the year, not even.
So for those just tuning in, we are in the music wing of the high school, and we're in a practice room. So first of all, you're going to hear the sounds in the background of music, but right before you came in, there was a student out there learning how to sing, and she said, well, I'm not a singer. And Ms. Swanson said, yeah, we're going to make you a singer. That just applies. We're going to make you a coder, whether you're going to sing or code in the next thing you do, at least you'll get a good introduction to what the concept is.
That's how I got into coding. In 12th grade, I was like, I have an extra class. I'm going to take the web page design class because it was nice and easy. And my teacher that I had to go get approval from, he goes, no, you're going to take AP Computer Science. And I gave him quite a look because I'm like, no way. That sounds way too complicated. I don't know anything. And it ended up being the best course I ever took in high school, I think. I learned so much about problem solving, coding, how computers work, and in 12th grade was 2002 for me. So that was really a good time to get into computers and to start understanding it and to really break into that and to gain that knowledge. And the students are doing the same thing here where I can't code. And then some of those students that said that at the beginning of the semester are the same kids at the end of the semester that I'm looking to as the leaders in the classroom for coding or for problem shooting or something. So those same kids that were like, oh no, miss, are excelling.
And that kind of speaks to, I've been invited to go see elementary school students doing Code Monkey in their library time. And at the high school, there's a new laser club where they have a laser engraver that they use to etch onto wood. And I know kind of the point of having your program in the middle school was some of that integration. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, this is definitely bridging the students from what they might have done an hour of code or Code Monkey. Oh, sorry about that.
There's our bell, and we might hear one in just a minute, but please go ahead.
Yeah, so we're trying to bridge the kids from Code Monkey, real basic coding where it's really buried in games, to actually outright coding, outright putting things together, putting circuits together, getting that hands-on, which then will allow them in the high school to do some more of those deeper skills, deeper woodworking projects, deeper electronics, metalworking, programming on machines, CNC stuff. So this is really that gap in the middle that sort of takes them from the super basics that you would do with an elementary student to what we're doing at our high school level, which really is industry standards sometimes.
And your 8th graders might have some catch up when they get to the high school, but hopefully by the time your 6th graders or 9th graders,
Yeah,
they'll fit right in.
They'll have a huge jump start to all of these careers, and some of them will be not the career for me. And I'm hoping though that I can inspire some other new people to go into the career, or at least consider those career pathways where they might not have thought about them before.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, last in the spring, I saw the high school, if folks don't know, has a Society of Women Engineers, which is part of that alignment towards a career pathways program that we have. And they were inviting the 8th graders to the 9th grade to the high school to just kind of see and hopefully join. You must see that as you're coming up too and starting to encourage those kids.
So I'm definitely seeing that. I'm actually super proud. I saw one of my 8th grade girls that I just had in my previous quarter. She actually joined the high school robotics team. So they're working on building a robot after school. And I caught up with her after school yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, you joined. I'm so glad. And this was a student that at first was like, Miss, I'm not doing this. But by the end of the quarter, she was like the one that was leading her group in the coding and everything. So I'm really proud that she's jumping into those clubs and joining into that already in 8th grade, getting that experience working with the high school groups.
So, yeah, I've heard people maybe don't understand when we say equity what we're talking about, but we're disproportionately don't have enough women in the tech and engineering field. When I was college age, I went to a liberal arts college, but across town was a technical college. Mine was a teaching college. It was at my school, it was 2 women for every man, and at their school, it was 99% men in this college education program. So that's what we're talking about, because we're missing out on half the population if we're not encouraging the brilliant girls to just try this and direct them towards it.
I definitely had that too. In high school, I was one of 2 girls in the class. In college, I was one of 1 or 2 in all of my technical programming classes. But when I switched over to my education major, suddenly it was like only 4 or 5 guys in a classroom of 30. So it was a very big switch like that. So I'm really excited to be able to come here as a female teacher and be like, yo, this is cool. We all can do this. Everybody has the ability to code. If you're learning English still, you're an English language learner, learning coding is another language to learn. And so that's just another skill. And people that can speak multiple languages, code sometimes comes easier because you already have those language skills. So it really is just an eye-opener to students of all abilities that they can do this, they can participate, and it's actually kind of cool. And sometimes you have advantages that you didn't realize you had. I would love to see the coding classes become closer to 50-50 male-female, and really just anybody who has an interest, I want them to feel comfortable getting into these classes.
Sure. So, slight change of topic. Oh, there's our bell. Good timing. So we've talked kind of heavy about the computer end, but maybe let's talk a little bit about the tactile end, because I know you have a wood shop next to you. Yeah. So
we, my 7th graders are going to be soldering circuits to make a speaker, and then they're going to be using our wood shop to produce the casing for that speaker. So they will hopefully take home a working speaker. Last quarter we had a lot of success with that. A lot of students really liked Miss, I can actually create a circuit board. So they were doing that, and just a lot of fun with getting into that. The automatons that we built were these huge cardboard structures, so the kids really have fun with building big things. It's not just electronics, it's not just coding, it's creating things, and the kids have really had fun with that.
What has surprised you about this year, being your first year in South Milwaukee and your first year teaching this program?
It's seeing a big diversity of the students in terms of their prior knowledge, and then when they come out of the class, just seeing how different some of those students have become. Like I said before, it's some of my kids that were like, Miss, I can't code, and all of a sudden they're the group leader at the end of the quarter. It's seeing those changes and that perseverance of the students is really amazing. And then also seeing students that share some of the passions that I have are really fun. We've been talking about Tesla and Edison, and seeing some of my kids being like, wait, Miss, what about this with Tesla? Or I read this about him. And I'm like, yes, you're reading about him. Yes, you have some knowledge. And seeing these kids doing that outside of the classroom is really exciting too.
And maybe when I first met you, you talked about you were going over rulers again, just how to use a ruler, and in our last podcast, we talked about our professional learning communities and how collaboration across schools and across departments has helped inform what you're teaching students. Can you maybe talk to that a little bit?
So we've discovered, especially because with COVID pandemic online teaching, students haven't had a lot of experience physically using some tools in front of them. And one of those is rulers, and just understanding inches versus centimeters, standard versus metrics, and understanding how do you use this, how do you measure, was a skill set that we found were lacking in that students, that ability to measure something, which seems so basic, but yet if you haven't practiced it, if you haven't tried it, you don't have that ability sometimes. So we've been working on that so that we, when they're going up into the high school level, if they choose to go into any of these career pathways that are very, hands-on creating products, like our wood shops and stuff like that, that they have this ability to measure, and that they understand there's different measuring systems and things like that. So this is really feeding into that. It's also getting into math with fractions, so it's reinforcing concepts learned in those classes. But yeah, we had to relearn how to measure things, and it seems so basic, but yet with everything the past couple of years, students really missed out on that. So it was a really cool skill to have to reinforce and to build that's going to help them in a lot of different things.
One thing that hadn't occurred to me and was fascinating was the collaboration aspect of your class and the reporting back. You had said that was something that the high school had said they were lacking in their students that they needed. What are you doing to kind of help with that?
So the high school's asked like 3 different things. They want kids to be able to read blueprints, they want kids to be able to do measurements, and they want kids to be able to communicate their thoughts, their actions, what they're doing. So those have been 3 things that I have focused on. We focused on the measurement. We spent about almost a week about just how to measure properly, standard versus metrics and things like that. But then we also are reading schematic diagrams when it comes to our electronics. We're creating our own blueprints for a bedroom design in 6th grade. So we're seeing how to read these official documents and how to draw something to scale and what that even means. And those are skills that they're going to be able to pull in if they use them in the high school. And then the last one is just to communicate. We've had the online ability to communicate, but actually getting feedback and putting your thoughts down and explaining to somebody in verbal words, in written words, in pictures, what your project does was a big skill that kids are working on. And every project that my students do, there's a reflection of some sort. It's either a written reflection, or they had to present it, or they have to type something up, or they had to take photos of it explaining what the project was doing. But trying to get kids to be able to talk about their projects using the correct terms is really important.
How do you coach them through when they disagree in a group?
Like when groups don't function well?
Well, not even. Maybe one feels that one path is one way to take and the other feels another. We heard at the school board meeting how we're integrating some of those disagreement mitigation strategies into things. I'm wondering if you're seeing that in your classroom.
So a lot of times it's, Miss, I want to build it this way, but so-and-so isn't letting me. And so we talk about, okay, let's talk about how we can address this. And some of that is just being respectful to each other and hearing out each other when they have an idea that is different than yours. And for some students, they don't have a lot of experience hearing ideas that are different than what they feel. So getting them to respect the other student, letting the student actually communicate their idea before you're like, oh, no, we're not doing that. And making sure that everybody has a voice in their group is important. The other thing is sometimes a student really wants to try something, and in my head, I know, I'm like, dude, that's not going to work. But the student doesn't know that yet. So I'm like, well, try it out. Do it that way. It's not going to hurt anything. Yeah, we can get some new wire. Yeah, we can get a new piece of cardboard and some extra tape. But let's try your idea first, and let's see if it works. So I try to get them to find the most likely way that they want to build something or construct something in their group if they're disagreeing. And they also can try out the other way. Or maybe I'll let them go the way that they think it should be done or most of the group members agree with. And then once they complete it and it's working, I'll be like, well, now I want you to try their way, the other person's way, and see if it also works. Because it might work better. And sometimes it does.
Interesting. So as we kind of wrap up, what's something that you want parents to take home from your program? What you're trying to teach these kids?
So I really want parents and my students just to realize STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, are part of your daily life. You don't have to be an engineer to understand all of this stuff. Everybody is capable of it. And if your student is in my class, ask them what they did that day. Ask them to explain it. Ask them what scientist or what concept or what tools we used. Ask them about their experience with this, because getting them to talk to you about that is going to show you how much they're doing in the classroom and how much they're really gaining from this.
Thank you. And then do you have one high point so far this year that you just thought, man, it's working?
I think each of the grades have had their own high points. Like today, we just made them this morning, and I was really proud of my first hour today because of how their DC motors they were able to focus on the directions and make working DC motors. I was going to give them 2 class periods, but a lot of them got it done today. So I was really impressed with just the quality of focus and the ability for some of them to do some problem solving with, oh, I didn't sand this enough. And I was just really impressed with their focus and their drive to want to get it right.
That's great, because we so often we hear the negative that our kids can't focus, they're distracted all the time. It just seems like you have to get them interested.
Yes, yeah. And hands-on electronic projects are a way to go.
Well, Joey, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the podcast, and thank you for being part of our school community.
Yes, I love it. It's great to be here.
Today's podcast was produced in the music wing of the South Milwaukee High School. A big thank you today to Julie Barnett, who gave up her planning period to talk to us, and again to music teacher Amy Swanson, who makes the studio available, and to her students for their patience while I take up a coveted practice room. You can find our podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or just about anywhere you get your podcasts. If you have a question or story that you'd like to hear about, please email us at info@sdsm.k12.wi.us. You can find us at SOMILW Schools on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can read more content at www.sdsm.k12.wi.us.